Hello and welcome to another episode of Game & Drink. I'm your host, Californian, and I'll be your guide to the wonderful world of craft beer and gaming. Over the years, we've seen a more persistent online multiplayer experience. Many games have benefited from this, from the simplest FPS to more elaborate MMOs. But there's been a particular genre of game that has become more popular recently, and developers have leveraged the increased scale and bandwidth of the internet to create a unique experience with persistent worlds. The genre I speak of is the online multiplayer crafting survival game. I'm sure many of you have come across or even played one of these. No Man's Sky is the most recent title that comes to mind, if you choose to believe it had an online multiplayer component. But there are many other titles like The Forest, Ark Survival Evolved, H1Z1, and even 2D titles such as Terraria or Starbound. The most infamous of these games that sits in my library is Rust. I've sunk many hours into this game, and it's one that's grabbed hold of my friends and has yet to let go. Today we're going to take a journey into the world of Rust, but we're going to need a companion. A most trusted friend that has accompanied me through many different games. I think it's time to call on Stoopid by Lagunitas. It initially started as a DayZ clone, Facepunch Studios released the game into early access on Steam in late 2013. Since then, it's gone through 2 game engines and remains in an alpha state. But don't let that fact deter you, the game is updated with new content and mechanics regularly. Through all these changes, the core of the game remains the same. As the genre suggests, the main goal is to survive. You spawn on an island with nothing but a rock and a torch, and the fun soon begins. Using your trusty rock, you bash trees and boulders to gather resources that you'll later use to craft better tools and weapons. Eventually, you'll have enough resources to build yourself a shelter. This shelter will give you a place to store your stuff and protect you from the wild. More importantly, you'll now have protection from other players. You see, in Rust, you share the same land and resources with other players. Whether or not these players are friendly depends solely on them. There are no mechanics in the game to dictate how players should interact. If they want to kill you and take your loot, then there's nothing to stop them. Conversely, they're free to team up and assist you through your journey, but again, there's nothing stopping them from betraying you later on. It is this player dynamic that makes Rust a distinct game. Every new encounter makes for a unique and interesting experience. No matter where I go, be it a gas station, grocery store, or liquor store, I'm sure to find Lagunitas Stoopid. At a decent price of anywhere from $3 to $6 for a 22-ounce bomber, it's a great choice if money is tight or you don't have any particular preferences. The beer itself is a double or imperial IPA sitting at 8% ABV and 102 IBUs for you, as touted on the bottle. This beer is part of the Lagunitas Unlimited release series, so it's available all year round. Stoopid pours a clear, dark golden color with a fluffy white head that can grow to a considerable size on an aggressive pour. It has decent staying power and will often leave a beautiful lacing on the glass and will go so far as to belie a dirty one. The beer has a citrusy and floral aroma with a bit of pine coming from the hops. If you pay close enough attention, you get a bit of the sweetness from the malt coming through. Upon first sip, you're met with those 102 IBUs and the citrusy zest and pine flavors of the hops. The floral notes fade in on the way down and soon give way to the sweetness of the malt. The more you drink, the more the sweet malts come through. The beer is as crisp as it is clear, and the higher carbonation tends to sit on the tongue after each sip. After a while, you begin to notice the crispness of the beer turns into a bit of a stickiness. This one is a hop bomb with a bit of a rustic taste. The hop extracts create a complex taste for such a simple beer. Your first few days in Rust can be difficult, as starting from scratch can be a time-consuming endeavor. Your first base will likely be destroyed, as it's probably made out of twig. Your second and third will likely be destroyed as well, since single-walled wood shacks are a target for almost any player. It's a bitter experience, but luckily the hoppiness of the beer is a great complement for it. If you're persistent, you'll eventually understand the world a bit better and find a location that is more secluded. This is where the game really takes off. You'll start to settle into a routine of gathering resources and dropping them back off at your ever-growing base. It's a rustic lifestyle that pairs well with your increasing respect for the rustic nature of Stoopid. As you step out and admire your surroundings, the floral and piney notes reflect the nature around your little shack. The more you advance, the more complexity you begin to extract from the game and the beer. Soon you'll have a stockpile of resources and weapons, and you'll want to travel out to find the other players that inhabit the world. You'll have some unique experiences as you meet with friendly natives and hostile clans. The feeling is exhilarating and you'll be reaching for your beer every time, letting the carbonation and citrusy flavors punctuate your encounters. This is Rust, however, and things can quickly take a turn for the worst. You may log in one day to find that you've been raided in the night and now you spawn back on the beach with nothing but your rock. You thought you had it figured out. You thought that the bitterness would fade away into the sweetness of the malts, but the hops are relentless. From what I've gathered, Rust is a humanity simulator. When death can potentially mean the loss of an honest day's work, I begin to question everyone around me. What reason do I have for letting that Newman live? So he can bash my head with a rock or shove a pipe shotty down my throat? At this point, I'd rather see him dead than me. At times like this, I look to my beer for answers. I see the golden color reflecting back the good person I want to be, but underneath is the bitterness of the hops that reveal my true nature. Time after time, sip after sip, you're met with a tragic turn of events that reset you to square one. These dank meme masters are as relentless as their dank hop counterparts. After a while, the bitterness overtakes you and you turn to terrorizing the other Newmans around you. Each kill is sickly sweet like the malts underneath. You're finally getting the satisfaction that you should. You kill and you drink. This is your life now. You feel dirty and sticky from the blood, much like the stickiness of the beer. You go for another sip, but your glass is empty. A delicate, beautiful lacing where your beer once was. It's as though the beer is telling you that everything is alright. Underneath the hate and the anger and kill on sight, there is some beautifulness to the world of Rust. You finally stop and take a good look around you. The golden color is like the sunset on the highest mountains, the fluffy head, the snow-covered peaks. You feel as though you yourself are in a luscious green forest and the smell of pines and flowers fill your nose. It's beautiful and complex, just as the game can be when you take a step back and look. It's a myriad of flavors that create a scene, and as you finish this beer, it seems as though the scene is one of your average day in Rust. Rust is a fun game. Or was a fun game. I'm not too sure anymore. This is the first time I've played in a while, and the comments from the community seem to sway from love to hate. The game may very well be different than I remember, but honestly that's what made it so appealing in the first place. I would look forward to the dev blogs to see what new and exciting ways I can piss off other players. We got to see the game evolve and new player dynamics flourish. Check out some other videos on Rust if you think you may be interested, but I'd probably bring some other friends along for the ride. If early access isn't your thing, then you could always wait for it to be finished, whenever the hell that'll be. But with a game like this, it's always going to be evolving with content updates, so will it really be all that different from the finished product? As far as Hop Stoopid goes, it's a beer that goes really well with almost anything. It's a great example of the West Coast style IPA, and its wide availability makes it approachable to anyone willing to dive headfirst into the hophead culture. With such a low price, who could really pass up trying this beer? At 8%, it'll get the job done. Generally, I don't like to pair such high ABV beers with games that afford opportunity to drink the beer more often, but Rust is a little special. You become engrossed in the experience so much that you often forget to stop and take a drink. It's only after a long stretch of playing that you tend to sit back and take a sip and reflect on what just transpired. With that, our video comes to an end. Give the video a like or dislike depending on how you felt, and let us know the details down in the comments. As usual, leave any feedback and maybe even some ideas you'd like to see in future episodes. Lastly, if you like the music you heard in this video, then check out the guys I have listed here. They all do amazing work and have a lot more stuff to listen to.